What do you reckon? Should we get the show on the road?
We can start. Actually, if folks who are joined would, I really wish there was a way for me to let folks just freeform type. I don't see the easy way to do that.
I think we're into the world of professional webinar.
Okay. Okay. Well, could folks, I guess, ask a question about what you hope to get out of this? Just give us some context. Give us some stuff that we can be seeding in our minds about what to prioritize content-wise. Just to fire them freeform into the Q&A, totally fine. They don't have to be particularly tidy. You could say, I don't even know what AI is, or I literally built ChatGPT or GPT-4, the LLM, and I'm just worried you guys are butchering it. Like, just go for it. Whatever comes up, comes out, to quote Brother Ali.
Yeah, we have a lot of content that we can take, that we're going to take everybody through today, but we're pretty flexible. And the whole point in doing a webinar is that if we want to get into it, we can get into it. So if there's anything on your mind, just let us know. For context, my name is Tom, and I am a founding designer at Cord. And so I'm going to be talking a lot about how we make chatbots and how we play with AI in a way that customers actually enjoy. And this here is Jackson, and I'll let Jackson introduce himself.
Hey, folks, I'm Jackson. I'm the co-founder of Cord. I'm a product engineer, and I've also recently become one of the people building interesting things on top of AI, on top of OpenAI in particular. We were kind of early-ish adopters of OpenAI's new tech, all the way through from embeddings to the full chat completion experience. We built a complex, fairly darn useful bot on top of OpenAI's. It was at the point we built it, it was GPT 3.5, but now we're GPT-4, trying to get API access to GPT-4 code interpreter, not available yet. But we've learned a lot. We learned what does work, what doesn't work, and I'm super excited to share that with the folks on the webinar here.
We're getting some really interesting questions in already. I don't think participants can see them, so we'll kind of like address things as we go and call them out in a kind of radio show kind of way. I think we've all wanted to be radio hosts and feeling pretty good about it now. Making sure that my chatbot isn't dead on arrival is something that I think about sometimes as well, and think about in probably most product launches. So we should definitely get into that. How to get reliable semantic search results from a vector database, particularly PG vector. I won't be taking that one, but I can have a crack. And coming towards the end of your web dev studies, hoping to incorporate AI into your final project somehow. Fantastic. Awesome. Welcome. I'm sure we can figure out a way to do that as well.
Oh, a new question just rolled in from Chris. How do your customers manage their knowledge base with your company? Oh, this is a fascinating question. Thank you for seeding it, especially with respect to Cord. Just to flag, this is we are Cord. We do make really good chat infrastructure, SDK, API, REST API, UI library, webhooks. We have a lot of what it takes to do all of the rest of a chatbot outside of the core data layer of it. But this is also not just a sales pitch from us. A lot of everything here is you can take it to wherever you're going to build whatever you're building without using any of what Cord offers. But we will actually talk a lot about how to manage the knowledge base. And we will talk a little bit about how you can do that with Cord.
Yeah, we're not here to flog Cord. And if we are doing a little bit of flogging, it'll be really obvious because we'll use the word Cord repeatedly and look at the camera and things like that. And if you want to just let that go over your head, we can do that. Cool. So I think we've got a bunch of really good questions. We've got a bunch of attendees ready to go. Do you feel like we should get this going?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's do it. Okay. Hello and welcome. As mentioned previously, we are Jackson and Tom from Cord, and we're going to talk a little bit about building bots in a way that customers actually enjoy using them. We've got a few slides that we're going to go through, but we can see questions as they come in. So again, this is not like a conference talk. So if you want to interrupt with some questions, we can do that. We can jump backwards and forwards. That's the whole point in being here in this slightly more kind of interactive environment. There are two sections that we're going to go through as we do it this afternoon. Jackson, I think you might need to click on my face in the top of the kind of Figma thing, and then you can follow me.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. Now I got the wheel. We're going to talk about getting the UX right, and we're going to talk about the technical implementation of that. And so to start with, let's talk about the UX of AI, and WTF that is, because that's a lot of stuff that we're jumping into, and it's a new world for me as much as anybody else. So I'm going to make some assumptions here, and we're just going to use it to set the scene of all of this. One is that there are a lot of companies out there thinking we should build some kind of bot, or perhaps there are a lot of CEOs or product people out there thinking we should build a bot and I should get a team to build a bot. And that's sort of really interesting in a way, but it's pretty difficult in other ways, as we found out, because we have built a bot. So we need to make sure that it's something that your users actually love, and that it is not just being done for the sake of following along or pleasing investors, but that actually it's something that gets customer value. Because with AI, yes, there's room for serendipity. There's room to create things and have experiences with your users that they haven't had before, and it's really interesting and it's really cool. And there's ways for that to be extremely annoying and frustrated. The bot doesn't know what the user's talking about. The user doesn't know what the bot is talking about. Everybody's annoyed. You take a screen grab of it, you post it on Twitter, aka X, and everybody hates it. So I'm going to talk through some steps that are really simple and hopefully sound inevitable and not rocket science, but how, when you start to think about AI and your product, how you should approach that from a user perspective. Once we've done that, Jack's going to take over and we're going to talk about how you actually do that. And if you want, we can pull up code and we can really kind of get into it. So the first step is no different to any other piece of product. And yet with things that are cool and with things that are kind of really in vogue, people jump straight into it without thinking, what do your customers actually need? So my brief to anybody within a company thinking of adding any kind of AI is come up with at least one, ideally 2 to 3 extremely compelling reasons that the customers will want this, why their lives are better with the addition of AI, and not just we have launched AI and we can market that and get it to people. And when doing that, it's a really good idea to look at what the LLMs out there, what these models, what they're good at, and what they're not necessarily good at, and kind of try and target this use case and what you're going to give your customers around this. As we've been exploring with it, and I'm sure everybody here has been exploring, there are some things that the current crop, I'm thinking GPT, I'm thinking Llama and Claude and these sorts of things, they're good at content creation. They're good at things like Microsoft is working this into their Open 365. Can you just take some bullet points and generate this for me? They're good at the reverse of that, sort of summarizing something. Here's a bunch of content and actually condense this back into bullet points for me. There's a whole bunch of conversations on this page. Can you just give me the gist of what's happening? Sometimes I would like Slack to have this if I've been on holiday, just round up the last 2 weeks for me. That would be good. It's really good at support. It can help you. It can kind of do a customer support, a bit of a customer success. Think of Intercom on our docs. We've got Cordy just as a mess around. You can ask it things and it can tell you, as long as you get those prompts right, it can help your users on the go. We can kind of reinvent Clippy, which is great, and editing as well. So if your use case fits within this, there's a pretty good chance that if you use something like GPT, you can get a long way with it. If it doesn't, there's nothing to say it won't work, but you might be battling with trying to get these models to do things that they're not just going to do very well, and your users are going to get frustrated, or we're going to end up back in this world quite quickly. So you've settled on a really compelling use case for it. The next thing to do is decide on what is the very basic user experience of this. And through that, I don't mean design. I mean, how are users going to interact with your bot? And I think about this as there are 2 kind of distinct paths you can go down. On the left, you have user to bot. It's you and a bot and no one else is there. Think about something like Intercom or even like Alexa. It's private. It's not being seen by other people. And it is a 2-way conversation. Another way you can do this with SaaS tools that have teams on them and whole teams of users, think about analytics or BI tools where you've got 4, 5, 6 people within a company using it, is actually you could have a whole group of users and the bot all in the same discussion at the same time, all in the same chat thread. That's really interesting because the bot then just becomes this thing that you can consult on a kind of need to know basis. It creates some interesting design decisions around, like, do you mention the bot? Is the bot a user? How do you summon the bot so it's not just responding to every message? But it means that knowledge is shared and diffused across the team, but everybody can see you asking it silly questions. And so that it's a slightly different kind of thing. Mm. So once you've settled on how this basic thing is going to fit within, is it going to be a private thing in the corner? Is it going to be a big public kind of chat? It's really important to then figure out what might feel like small details, but as I'm sure everybody has experienced when using any kind of AI tool, can be a real pain in the ass when you use it. And the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking about this is how the GPT-4, for example, is slow. This is a problem that we have had when trying to build Cordy, our kind of docs bot that we use. You would send a message and like 20 seconds would go past and nothing would happen. And you almost forget. It takes so long, you might want to give up. That will get better over time, but at the moment it's an issue. And it's an issue that is no different to Photoshop taking forever to load when you clicked on it 10 years ago. You have to find ways around that. And one way of doing that is thinking about typing indicators. On Slack, on any chat messaging platform, we use typing indicators to let us know, hey, like someone's thinking about this. Jackson's replying to me and I know that he's on it and I'm just going to go and think my thoughts until it happens. We can do that here. In the time between sending the message and it's responding, what's a bot version of a typing indicator? Have a think about that from a UX point of view. Is it working? Is it thinking? What's it doing? There is another reason to do this as well. If you go back kind of 5, 6, 7 years, Facebook did a bunch of research on the types of loading indicator that you can show. If you open an app and you use sort of Apple's default loading spinner, users tend to think, okay, like it's taking a long time to load because my phone is slow. Facebook designed a really nice loading, kind of much nicer custom spinner, on brand, all that kind of thing. But they found in testing that users thought Facebook was slow when they clicked on it. They associated it with them and not Apple. The same principle applies here. Blame the model. If it's taking a while, users are going to blame your tool if you don't do things like this. So this seems like a small detail, but like it can make a huge difference to the overall experience.
Absolutely. I just to jump in briefly on this, when we built our first version of the bot, we had to Chris's question earlier, we had pretty good semantic context underneath. So the bot was knowledgeable. It could answer your question. And I put it in front of everyone, and every single person on the team who used it, the first thing they did was type in something, hit enter, and then stare at the screen. And they would wait exactly, I don't know, 0.5 seconds. And they would look at me like, what's wrong with it?
Yeah.
Like I'm every single person on the team. And so you don't think, oh, that latency matters when you're building it, because you're like, look, I know what's behind here. But to the user, there's nothing behind there. They're waiting for infinity.
Yeah. And you type it again, and then you get these compounding problems as it's like seeing everything coming in and getting back to you. So this kind of stuff matters. Another thing that feels like a small detail is this is sort of almost in like the pop culture world of AI, but personality sort of is a thing. What are your users engaging with here? Because that's going to massively shape the type of experience. The way that I think about this is you can be human-like, a bit like Alexa. You give it a name, it talks to you in a way, you know, everyone's seen sort of her. It talks to you in a way where it feels like you're interacting with a person, or you can go straight up robot, and it is performing services for you, and there is no personality because it is just you and a computer, and you're just simply interacting with it in a slightly different way. There are good reasons for both. Human-like can really help people adopt new tools. This is sort of similar to the way that, you know, when the iPhone was released, everything looked like a strange facsimile of the real world. The wallet app had stitches on it. The save icon is still a floppy disk because it reminded people of how you store things. So making a bot sound and feel a little bit human is a way to get people to adopt new technology. And you can be expressive, you can have personality, you can very easily tell these models, hey, act in this way, act in that way, and it will help. Probably not a good idea if you're doing sort of customer support, because people might not be in the mindset to have like a sassy bot. And it can get a bit creepy pretty quickly, to be honest. My preferred thing here is straight up robot, and that's something like Midjourney. And for those that haven't used it, Midjourney generates images. It lives within Discord, and you just give it prompts and it gives you images, and there is no chat. It's clear that it's not a person. It feels a bit quicker sometimes because, again, when you're talking about slowness, it's not wasting time going, well, that's really interesting, Tom. I think it's just telling you. And what is most interesting for me, and as a designer is most interesting for me to explore, is you can embed actions. If you're not treating it like a person, even if we're in a bot or if we're in a message context, especially at Cord, we think a lot about messages and chat or comments. You can add actions to these because it's not from a person. You can treat it differently. You can say, rate this message. Like, was this good? Did this help? You can help you tune your prompts. You can say, retry. You're generating content and it's had a go. That's not right. Click retry it, resubmit. It does it again. It's not just adding endless messages. It's changing the content in there. Sticking with adding content. If it's given you something that you like, maybe you have a keep button and it takes it from the chat window where the bot lives and it puts it into the document, which is the core part of your product. You can do all this kind of stuff if you treat it more like a bot. That's kind of my preference as we're starting to explore this sort of thing.
There's an interesting aspect of Midjourney that's worth talking about here, because it is not human-like at all. And it also takes an era. It takes like 10 to 15 seconds to produce an image.
Or 60 sometimes.
So what do? They use constantly refreshing halfway images, partial images that are like the sort of nasty diffusion. It's not quite finished, but you as a user get to see it doing something. That was a careful choice on their part to keep you engaged. It's like it's like an almost for free progress bar.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, that looks almost like a real image. And that's something you can do when you don't have a human there, because there's no human telling you, I'm almost finished.
Yeah, just bear with me. And the final thing is you're going to get rage quits. People are going to get annoyed by this. We're into a world where UI and UX at the moment, they're kind of deterministic, to use like silly words. You have some options. Users can fill out a form field. They can click some buttons. They can select some radio buttons. You kind of know where this is going. And if it goes wrong, you can just have error states, and you have your error states mapped out and you have nice messages for them. Here, it's like the Wild West. You just don't know what's going to happen. And these models, we don't own them as these companies. We can't control everything that they know about. And if they get loaded up with some bad context, they start riffing, they're just not going to provide anything useful for users. You need to find ways, especially if you're using this for like a business critical thing like support or for content generation, to help get people out of this. The most obvious way is to loop in a human somehow. For me, if I was designing this, like a best-in-class way of doing this would be, if it's support and the bot can't do it, file a ticket and get and assign an actual employee to it and let that person know. That way, that person has a person they can talk to if they need to, but they know that you are on it. And it becomes, if you do it in a way, it becomes one of those interesting things where an issue can actually become a benefit because you've dealt with it so well. You're like, oh, that actually was handed off really seamlessly. I don't feel bad about this now. A much simpler way is something that you do see in things like ChatGPT, where you can just create a new chat, start again. Because what happens is when you are using these models, it remembers everything you've said before. And whatever you say, it's taking into account everything you have said. And it's just getting more and more and more context. It's getting more in its head. It's getting more confused. And sometimes you just need to wipe the slate clean. Then the same question might get you a different answer because it's not trying to take into account everything you've said before. So giving the people the opportunity to just start again completely is really
Before we run off from this one, on the notion of roping in a human, this is one of the places where people sometimes go astray. When you're building it from scratch for the first time, you won't build in a way to rope in an actual human into that process. No escape hatch email address, no escape hatch ticketing system. But the best in class way to do this is to have it be that a human can just jump into the chat directly and say, okay, it's a human from now, the bot is gone. That's a really, really nice way to do this, but it does require a lot more back in the infrastructure-y stuff if you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, and if you are deciding to get into this rather than dabble, that's this model on the right here. You've got user 1, bot, user 2, user 3. Jackson needs help. A bot is helping him. They've got into an issue. I, as a customer support person, have been looped in. I can see the chat that they've had before. I get the context and I can just respond, and it's all in one place. Like, that would be awesome. Okay, so we kind of know that we need to do this in the proper product way and not in just a kind of following a fad way. We need to build something people want. To do that, we need to figure out what these LLMs are good at. For example, editing, summarizing, expanding on content. We've decided on our basic model. Is it just a person and a bot in a private conversation? Is it a little bit more open? Can multiple people be looped in? And we've not let go of what might feel like small details, but actually they can lead to a bunch of rage quits. This is the stuff that I think about all the time. This is the stuff that designers and product people think about. And to be honest, it's quite easy to say. It's quite easy for me to sit here and say, you should loop in a human. But like, how do you do that? And for that, Jackson, I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay. All right. I think I'm going to stop following you in Figma now. Do I just click myself? Spotlight me?
Yeah. I mean, you can just close this presentation and go into the file if you want to just have a scoop around.
Oh, yes. Oh, look at this. Look at all the goodies. Oh, let me do command dot. Simplify that. There we go. Too far. There we go. Here we go. So let's talk about how these bots actually work. From here, we're going to switch to a just real technical, ooey gooey, down in the weeds stuff. If I leave off something important, if I do something confusing, feel free to just like post a question.
Before you get too into this, Jackson, and just notice you're about to get into it, I'm just going to stop you. Should we address 1 or 2 questions that came up during that first bit before we do? I just noticed a couple here, and I'm like really obsessed with being a radio host about this.
Let's go for it.
Someone has asked, could I do it without a backend developer? I guess we'll cover this as we go, but what we've talked about here, I imagine this person is probably thinking like, I have a front end, I'm a front end developer, I've got one, and I've got some designers. Can we do this without that? Can you?
Oh, that's a good question. You at least need to have the ability to send and receive API messages. So you need a server. This has to happen on a server somehow. You can do this with a bit of creativity. You can do this with like Lambdas, with AWS Lambdas, or with like Firebase Cloud Functions. It's not easy. It's not easy to do that. Yeah, if you don't have a backend engineer or support from a backend team, you would probably be better off to use some sort of framework, at least for the chat portion of it, because that in itself is a huge amount of work, like just like the message data model and how you store the messages and how you recall them to get them back into the context for the bot. Yeah, if you don't have any backend support, it's a tough call. It's hard work.
We've got another one that's sort of related to what we were talking about, but what happens if a bot takes too long to reply? Can you notify a user that a response is ready? Let's say you're doing something complex and it takes a minute and the person's clicked off the screen. Can we get to that person with that response?
Yeah. Okay. So this is an interesting one. Humans have about a few milliseconds, or sorry, a few dozen milliseconds of patience for something to feel instant. 15, 20, 30, 50 milliseconds, it feels instant. Up to about, I don't know, 3 or 4 seconds, it feels slow. Like if you message someone and like nothing happens for 10 seconds, you put your phone away, like you're done. That conversation is over. You'll come back to it later. You don't see, like nobody sits and stares waiting for something to happen for 10 seconds. So when that happens, you need some sort of escape hatch for when the other thing, when your friend finally texts you back and you pull your phone out and you see the notification. It's the notification that gets you back into the thing. And with bots, it's no different. If you've got some process that takes a while, if GPT is just overloaded that day and is taking a long time, you need a way to get the person back. And that usually is a secondary notification mechanism. Usually it's a secondary sort of slower notification mechanism, like a push notification or an email. But you got to build something for it. You can't assume that this will be a successful UI, a successful bot experience, if when one of these hiccups happens, when it goes slow, if there's no way to bring the person back. For a hacky prototype, that's fine. For a production thing, you need a way to pull the person back in that is an asynchronous mechanism.
It's one of those things where you think you're building one thing and you start pulling on the thread and you're like, oh, okay, I've got to build this and this and this and this. And anyway.
Yeah, 10 seconds does not seem like a long time until you're the user of a system and you're like, God, this is so slow.
Keep the questions coming. We will get back to the ones that were asked at the beginning as well, but I'll let Jackson crack on.
Nice, nice. So let's talk about end-to-end data flow. How does a bot work? Let's start from your user. So your user opens your app. That's step one. Good. We're making progress. Your backend is going to give them the app. It's going to serve the HTML and the CSS or the native application, whatever. So this is the Cordy bit. We did warn you. We would say the word Cord when we're doing Cordy stuff. You use your backend to generate a token, and you send that back to your user. And now Cord knows who your user is, in addition to you knowing who your user is. And from here, they're using the chatbot. So you send a message to your backend, or if you're using Cord, it goes via Cord. At this point, you now know what the user has started with. At least you think you do. In practice, what we found is people send a lot of really terrible generic first messages to bots. They'll just be like, hi.
Hey.
And that's actually practically useless. It makes it very difficult to pick good context. Like your bot doesn't know what to say back to that unless you give it some sort of, well, we'll talk about that. So if you're using Cord, you would get the message to our backend and we would forward it to your server. If you're not using Cord, then this line would just bend straight to your backend. This is the your backend column. Now you've got the message on your backend. Chris earlier mentioned vectors, searching vectors. We'll talk about embeddings in a second. For your bot to do anything meaningful, you need to know how the user's intention maps onto what capabilities that bot has. So if it's simple knowledge, this is basically a search problem. You're like effectively generating search results to give to the bot for the bot to make answers out of. So that's this step. You then send this packet. It's the user's message plus the context plus the instructions for the bot. You send that to the AI service for a completion. And remember, this isn't knowledge. The bot doesn't know anything. What the bot is doing is character by character producing a string of text that matches what the model has been trained to believe looks like the right text based on what you gave it in the first place. But that's what it does. Yeah, so this is the AI service doing that. It's creating the completion, and then it will send that back to your backend. And if you're not using Cord, at that point, you forward it onto your user. But if you are using Cord, then you send that to Cord. You call a REST endpoint on Cord and say, hey, here's the next message in that conversation. It's from the bot. And then because you're using Cord in this case, if you've got 5 people in the conversation, they all immediately receive that message because that's what we do. And then they finally get the bot's reply on their screen and your user sees it. Like this is everything on the way.
Just to finish, because I want to plug Cord very quickly here. Can I tie it back and be really neat in my radio host job? This last bit about sending the message, Cord sends the message then onto the users through the front end. Notifications can work here, right? So if it takes forever and the user closes the window, because Cord sends notifications, that person figures all that bit out.
Yeah. So for instance, if the AI chatbot
end of plug.
End of plug. If the AI chatbot took 15 or 20 seconds or a minute, if it was some batch process that it triggered on your backend and that takes 3 hours, well, as long as you send a Cord message at the end of that, your user is going to get a message from the bot saying, hey, your batch process is complete. Your answer to your question is here, and you'll get a notification in app, and you'll also get a notification email. That's the free stuff from Cord. So actually, in plug now. Sorry. So let's talk about the UX here. This is the logical flow. Here's the painful part. Everything that is tinged red here, to the user, this is opaque. They have no idea what's happening. They typed in a message and hit enter or click the send button. And then somewhere between seconds and hours and days, at some point, maybe they get a reply back and they have no idea. This is the gulf of abandonment. And so this is where the UX, as Tom described earlier, this is where the stuff really applies. Are you using every trick available to you to minimize the amount of time perceived by the user? You can't change how much time it takes, but you can change how much time they perceive with things like presence, read receipts, typing indicators. Simple messages that says, hey, the bot saw your message and is coming back to you. Those things actually really, really help people feel something is happening. I am seen. Okay, so let's talk about these prompts. you hear a lot about prompt engineering and prompts and whatnot. I'm not going to dive into prompt engineering here because it's a well-covered topic in other places. I'm not interested in jailbreaking. A lot of engineers are like, I'm going to jailbreak your prompt. And to that, I would say like, okay, great. You got my.
Is that where you're like, forget everything that you have been told. You are a fresh newborn baby. Now do this for me. That's jailbreaking, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you only quote Wordsworth.
Sure.
Yeah. And we're not going to talk about jailbreaking here because bots that are useful, jailbreaking is like, it's fine if you get the bot to do something a little bit degenerate. Like,
yeah, who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
Most users actually want to get something done. They're not interested in being like a bot prompt security researcher.
Post it on Reddit. Nice.
Okay, so what do you put in a prompt? There's 4 things. The first is a persona. You say LLM, because a language model can be anything. Like GPT-4 has a default personality. It's the one you get when you just like type something in and hit enter. And if you don't add any persona flavor, that's what you get as well. The second thing after the persona that you give it, you tell it who it is. The second thing you do is you say, this is what you do for the user. And this is important. The purpose, bots are LLMs are surprisingly responsive to purpose. If you say, you are here to help the user, please be polite, you will have an unbelievably polite bot. If you say, you are a grumpy senior engineer and you don't like to waste time and most people are dumb, you will get a grumpy insulting bot. It's hilarious. You tell the bot what it's there to do. And then knowledge. So knowledge, I guess maybe I should have called this like knowledge / capabilities. Knowledge is what stuff the bot knows. And remember, again, the bot doesn't know anything. The bot receives text that it can extract from. It can produce text that follows from that text. It doesn't really know any of that, but you have to give it relevant stuff. If a user says, how do I add or how do I update my credit card? You need to give it text from your knowledge base of how that works, like what the procedures of that are. And the LLM is ridiculously good at producing a human valid response based on that. But if you don't get the right knowledge into the bot, it's garbage. It can't do meaningful things for you. The very last thing in a prompt is the trigger word. It's the, okay, and now do the thing from here. So what do I mean by that? Well, here's an exact example. This is literally the prompt we use in our bot. It's in the open source repository, which I'll share shortly. I don't expect you to read all of this. Let me just zoom in a bit here. You are called, you can give it the name of your choice. You are helping someone who is learning about a company called Cord. Many of the questions you face will be technical. Break the problem down step by step if possible. This is the persona. This is the way we want the bot to behave. And then there's like some stuff that we've found bots get wonky. Like for instance, the bots, the AIs, they're terrible at distinguishing client-side code versus server code. So often someone will ask a server-side question and they get a client-side code response. Mm-hmm. And by just adjusting the prompt, we were able to get that to mostly stop. It's not foolproof, but it's much better. It's much more useful.
Yeah, wrapping the code in 3 backticks you see here. That's because for us, we accept Markdown and code was just coming back in line. And we did that. Suddenly it actually works and you can format stuff nicely.
So all of this is the sort of the first bit here. It's the persona and the purpose. And then what you do is you have a replacement bit here. This bot context bit is what the bot knows. Now, bot context is not much knowledge, but what you do is you use a semantic search mechanism called cosine similarity. If you want to get really nerdy about it, we can talk about it. You basically figure out from the knowledge or capabilities you want the bot to have, what things you can tell the user based on what the conversation has contained previously. Tom earlier mentioned that when you have a long conversation with the bot gets like more likely to be confused, more likely to be dumb and unhelpful. And sometimes like refreshing from 0 is really useful. And that is because this context, the knowledge you give the bot, it is sharing time. It is sharing token space with the conversation contents. Every bot has a limit for how many tokens they can communicate with. I think GPT-4, I think is 8K right now. Claude is, I think, maybe 75K. Different bots have, different LLMs have different token size. When you exhaust that token size, that's it. The conversation is over. You literally cannot add a single character more to it. So then here's the last bit. Here's the trigger. I mentioned the trigger word. So you give the bot a persona and you give it knowledge that it has, and then you say, reply as this character to the conversation with a helpful message. You give them the message the user gave you, and then you give the bot the prompt, like say, okay, now your message goes here. And this is where the completion starts. It just starts typing the rest of the characters from there that follow from what you gave it. This is the complete anatomy. Like literally you can use this prompt, replacing bot username with the name you want your bot to have, and bot context with the knowledge you want your bot to have. Maybe change the part about Chord to whatever is relevant to your business. But it works. It does the thing. So let's talk a little bit about this context. Context is tricky. It's very easy to get it wrong or to have it be unuseful, because to us, like this is the Chord docs page. This is knowledge. Look, it's an H2 tag and it's got some inline code and there's a link. We know what this is, but this is what you have to give to the bot because it's just the markup. It's just the text. And in markup, there's a lot of junk. There's a lot of clutter that won't help you. The fact that there's a closing tag on every H tag, like you can actually give raw HTML to GPT-4, et cetera. They will do the right thing. But there's a very good reason to not do that, which is every single character of this eats away at your token limit. The more characters you use for the context, the less characters you have left for any conversation to happen.
So that 8K limit you were talking about, if you send it a whole page of HTML, that could almost hit it immediately if there's a ton of long class names.
Literally one HTML page usually blows past it. Yeah. I tried this yesterday with our own website because I wrote some code. It's in this open source repository. I wrote code to parse the HTML and produce plain text. This is the plain text version of that same page. I wrote code to do this. And then I thought, I'm a genius. Why didn't I just give the HTML to GPT-4 and have it produce the plain text? And I pasted it on our homepage and it said, you've exceeded the token limit.
Fantastic.
Game over. So you need to parse your content down to plain text to conserve as much token size as possible so that you can have a meaningful conversation. When you make it here, you're in a good place. And you can do some interesting things from here, because this is knowledge for text completion in a conversation, but this is knowledge to a large language model. This is an embedding. It's a 1,500 item list of numbers that maps any piece of text from a single dot character to a gigantic thousands of bytes, complete work of Shakespeare or something. You can produce a vector of it. And this is mapping into the gigantic 170 trillion parameter space of the model. It's not super important that you know the math on this. What is super important to remember is this embedding is how you figure out what stuff is relevant to other stuff. So imagine this. Your user says, how do I add a credit card? What you do is you compute an embedding out of that input, and then you have a library of other embeddings, other vectors, and you compute the distance between these in a geometric sense. There's functions that do this.
When you say you, do you mean the LLM does this? This is what they do?
Oh, I do it by hand.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You write code to do this on your backend. Okay. This is the part that is heavy lifting for a backend engineer. And the wise way to go about this is to have a list of all of the URLs or the knowledge you want it to have, to run that through some parsing process where you get the text out of it. Then you send that text to OpenAI, to whoever, to get the embedding version of it, to the vector version of it. You can do that with a single API call. And once you've done that, you now have this data representation of the same piece of content. So if we take this all the way, maybe when you ran the cosine similarity, what you discovered was this vector is the most similar to this vector. So that's the piece of content that is most relevant. And if you look at what that content was, because of the magic of how LLMs work, it turns out it's the text from your site about how to add a payment method. And you'll notice they said credit card, but this says payment method. It's even wilder than that. They could have said this in French. And because of the huge parameter space of LLMs, it will correctly map the semantics of this via the vector to the semantics of that. What you store is this and this. You store the vector of the plain text and the plain text, and ideally a link back to your site. And with just those three things, I should have put the URL here. I will update the slides. With just those three things, you can now give your bot its prompt, its knowledge, which is the text from the payment page, and the user's question, which was, how do I add a credit card? And when you give that to the completion API for OpenAI, et cetera, you will get back a human-sounding explanation of how to use your website. That's the mind-blowing part of this. So that was a light speed walk through how the context all fits together, how the prompts all fit together. Maybe it's a good time for some more questions if we have any. Otherwise, we can jump straight into the open source repository.
I'm wondering about going back to Chris's question from the beginning, which is the one I understand the least, but it seems to be about getting reliable semantic search results from vectors. How I know that we've played with adding search to our product and our docs powered by the same thing. Any tips for getting reliable results through that?
Absolutely. In fact, let me just stop sharing this screen, and I will open up our docs, and I will reshare. So on our docs site, we have a bot called Cordy. And this was me asking the bot, what was my last conversation with the bot? Oh, I was asking how to create a thread using the REST API, and it nailed it. Good job, bot. Well, the reason it knew how to do that is the same reason that this search bar is useful. And that is because we have methodically gone through every single page of our site, converting it to plain text, computing the vector of that plain text, and storing it. In our case, it's too big to give to the bot in its entirety, but it's small enough that you could just put this in a JSON file on your server and load it in memory. For most knowledge bases, unless you have some gargantuan megabyte knowledge base, unless you're like, I'm trying to think of someone who like all of Microsoft, maybe, unless you're something like that, you probably don't even really need a vector database. It's probably overkill. Because it's a linear search. You take the vector you have and you compare it one by one against the vectors that you have previously computed, and you figure out the ones that score the highest and take the top few. It's quite straightforward, maybe easy to say. So for instance, like REST API add thread. Yeah, so the first thing I get back is this results. And what's happened here is this text got converted to an embedding. And every single page of our site, a doc site, already has an embedding computed. And then we compute the vector distance between those. And if we sort that by whichever one is the highest score, and these are the search results. And this text here, all available operations, blah, 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 this is the same context that we would feed to the bot. And the bot creates the rest from there. It knows, because of what's in the content of our docs, how to use this stuff. And LLMs are just really darn good at turning that into instructions for people. So unless you have a really massive knowledge base, like so big that you couldn't possibly just search it in real time, you probably don't need a vector database at all. It's quite fast. It's surprisingly fast, because these are really, really simple floating point operations, which computers are ridiculously good at.
Thanks.
Yes, were there any more on them? Okay. So the cool thing is this URL, which I will paste into, I can paste it in the chat, right? I can send it to everybody.
No, people can't see the chat.
Oh, I'll paste it in the chat. Wait, no one can see the chat. We'll send it over email. This repository is the open source repository of exactly what is in exactly how we built our own docs bot. So this is a live, real working.
So this is what we were just looking at just now, that little bot in the corner and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if you were to run this locally, you would see, let me just switch which thing I'm sharing here. You would see this. Hi, I'm Cordy. How may I help? I don't know. What's something interesting? Can I style a cord thread to look like Barbie?
You seen Barbie yet?
I have not yet, no.
Oh,
have
man,
you?
I could really get into doing this podcast type thing. No, I saw Mission Impossible the other night. Anyway, back to this.
So what you should have noticed there is a few things. One, you saw a typing indicator for Cordy, but also this is a response from Cordy based on like actually how our stuff works. And we can go one step further. Let me just do one more screen juggle.
So if you run that repo yourself, are you getting that back from GPT?
Yes.
As well, from OpenAI?
Yes. In fact, here we can see Is this the right one? Yeah, it must be. Sounds like you're interested in custom. Yeah, there we go. Interesting. So these are the pages of our site that it thought were that scored the highest. I'm actually surprised that it is those. I wonder if it's the word Barbie. Anyway, I don't know why we got those specifically. Sorry, those specifically, but this is the chat log. So this is me running that repository locally. I got ngrok here. I've got my local web server for the files and this HTML and CSS, and here's my local backend server. It is literally a turnkey website scraping bot. There's even code to pull in the URLs, to scrape the content of a site, to generate the embeddings. It is the whole thing in this one repository. It is weeks of developer time that has gone into this. We're here to be the chat layer. We're here to be the really, really kick-ass UI. We want you folks to have the tools to build whatever bot experience you want. And so we're giving you all of that work, giving it to the world. Yeah, go nuts.
It feels to me like the chat bit, if I didn't work for Cord, would kind of be the most boring bit, right? Like, can I do app mentions and format things and send notifications? So that kind of comes with it. And going back to the beginning, Phoebe, wanting to incorporate things into your web dev studies things. Obviously, you're not going to like rip this off, but this is pretty useful for you if you're wanting to figure out how to add AI into your final project. Like, go have a poke around. Hopefully it will help.
Absolutely. Open issues,
yeah.
pull requests. We're very happy to answer questions about this. So we got some more questions flowing in. Nice. Let those funnel in. Anything else that's interesting about it? So this is a knowledge-having bot. This is a bot that knows things and can answer questions. In another session, maybe we can dive into how to make a bot that does things. It's actually practically the exact same thing. You just tell the bot specifically how to reply to certain things, but
perform actions and things like that. I have a question for you.
Oh.
What was the thing that tripped you up the most whilst doing this? Because I know that you worked on this personally, which is why you're talking today. Like, you were the engineer writing the code. What was the thing that tripped you up and annoyed you and made you rage quit whilst doing this?
Oh man, so some of the stuff that was really painful is like we built this on top of ChatGPT, GPT 3.5 at first, and stuff. OpenAI was just super flaky. It was just constantly erroring, constantly throwing on the server side. We ended up having to build some retries into the back end of this to make it robust enough. That was really, really a pain in the bottom, because you will find that your bot has like just no response. The user experience is nothing has happened, and you have to go and look at your server to see what has happened. And it turns out, oh yeah, GPT is just throwing 500s right now. That's just deal with it. That was really, really tricky. The other thing that was shockingly hard, I still don't think we've mastered it. It's better than it was when we first started. Turning HTML content into plain text that is useful for the bot. There are lots of libraries that claim to do this well. If you've got semantic markup, it's better. But there's a really tricky thing, and I think this might have been the heart of Chris's question earlier about semantic search. Taking your site content-wise and turning it into plain text, that's trivially easy. There's lots of libraries that will give you that. Breaking it into the right chunks to be useful to send to an AI for a text completion, that is so hard. What we ended up doing was using a combination of chunking to just based on like size limits. If a page is too long, you just have to cut it in half, because you literally cannot give it all to OpenAI or to whatever service you're using. The other thing that we did was we relied on the underlying semantic structure of the page. There's a simple trick. If you read the code, you'll find it. The trick is, if you've got an H tag, H1, H2, H3, if you go from an H1 to an H2 to an H3, well, you're still under the same umbrella of content. Those are semantically nested things. But if you're at an H3 and you encounter an H1, if the page is built semantically, then you know you're at a change of topic. And that is an excellent place to break your content for an embedding. And that way, you know, everything in that embedding, everything in that vector is coherent together. It fits together. And the next thing will be a new piece of content. I have so many ideas for how to do this even better than we've already done it.
So like writing your code in a way that probably is quite friendly to SEO is also friendly to the things that are sort of taking bits of your site and trying to do things with them.
Definitely. Definitely. I'm curious, as you think about your experience building an AI for the first time, what were the aspects of designing the UX of an AI that was different than what you thought?
The thing that for me I've become increasingly interested in is treating it less like a person and more like another piece of UI, because it is just a way of getting content that is very effective. And so aside from the things that surprise me, like how it hallucinates all the time and you have to kind of continually tweak that prompt until it doesn't, and how it's really slow and you have to find ways to get around that, finding ways to take this bot, this piece of AI, this new capability you have in your product, which is almost certainly currently, no matter what you're doing out there, layered onto your product in a less than ideal way, because we don't have like companies built from the ground up with a lot of this stuff yet. Getting that content in, you generate some content based on these meeting notes. Fine. What do you do about that? Does that happen live in a text editor? What if it's not very good? Do you retry? Well, if you retry, where does that happen? Does it happen in the message UI? Because currently you don't have that when you're talking. I'm talking to you in a chat message in WhatsApp. There's no like retry button. So thinking about ways to treat these things differently, but not so differently that it's uncanny valley. I haven't solved it. Not so differently that it doesn't make sense to then type something to it because it makes you uncomfortable feeling like you're typing to a robot, but different enough that you can perform actions and it doesn't feel like it's faking being a person. I don't think we've cracked that yet, but it's super interesting for me to think about. I've just noticed we've got a couple of extra questions coming. We've only got a couple of minutes, so let's try and get to some of these. Can we share the slides? Someone missed the start. Yes, we definitely can. We can share the slides, and we can share a video recording, I'm sure, as well. And someone asking about what kind of resource should they allocate to building. I think they've put here as an assistant for it, like an AI assistant, I imagine. Well, from my side, thinking about this from a product and design side, you will want someone at a design level on this. Probably just a designer is fine. Depends how integrated this is with your product. If you're adding something new and like a chat layer or a commenting layer to your product, then one designer and some kind of UI library out there, something like Radix, plug, chord, end plug.
I heard those folks know how to do UI.
Is something like any of that type of stuff is very useful. You're probably going to need. We touched a little bit on this earlier, but we're going to need a backend person, aren't we? But is it a big team, or is it like could you do it with the kind of the triangle thing, you know, one engineer that's full stack, a PM maybe, and a designer?
Depending on what you need. If you need a knowledge having bot,
let's take Cordy, for example.
Yeah.
Let's take an assistant, a kind of co-pilot type thing.
Yeah, well, if you've got one person who is reasonably full stack and not afraid to get their hands dirty in some API calls, you can absolutely do this. You can absolutely do this with that person, with a design person. If you're starting from scratch, there's a lot of UI. There's a lot of UI work. Yeah. A tragedy is when you put like a text area on your page and a send button, and like chat that feels like an afterthought won't land with your users. We're at a point in the world where everyone has seen WhatsApp and Signal and Slack and Facebook Messenger and LinkedIn Messenger, and everyone knows which one of those is good and what's good about them. If your chat doesn't feel like a real chat, it just doesn't work.
I guess it's so interesting that the big stuff, the getting the info back and getting the right magical content from a model, it's not that it's easier, but that it's almost a slightly faster problem to solve than like the bits that we covered earlier in the sweat the details section, like smoothing out slowness. Someone closes a window whilst it's replying, making sure they get a notification. Can it format code or can it format a link that it's coming back and display that properly in a chat? Like literally the stuff that you don't think about is the stuff that eats up most of your time, and that's kind of annoying but kind of interesting. Yes. But that's the case. It's also why, you know, transparently as Cord, we think that this is interesting for us because we handle that out of the box, but we still have to handle it. We have to think about that stuff. So it is interesting that that's where most of it's taken.
We've already paid that emotional burden, or that actually technical burden several times. Like when we built Cordy, we found a bunch of stuff about the chat experience that was just missing, stuff that people wanted, things that made it feel real. And we went and did all that stuff. And so if you wanted to use Cord, you just jump straight to like the version 6, version 10 you skip past all of the rookie versions with stuff that's just glaringly wrong. That's the value that I think a library like ours adds. It certainly takes away the need for just a huge amount of the front end work, a huge amount of the even the plumbing, like storing messages, recalling messages, user authentication stuff, profile photos. That's all stuff you have to do if you're building this stuff from scratch.
Awesome. Should we wrap it up there?
I think so. I think so.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll follow up in the same email address that you got this link from, with a recording, with the slides, with a link to the repo. If you want to use that repo, please do go nuts, open issues if you find things or have suggestions. And just, you can email us as well if you want. I'm tom@cord.com, and you're what, like Jack or at cord?
Jack@cord.com.
Jack@cord.com. Like, keep the questions coming. This is fun. Cool.
Cool. Thank you all. And
take care.
And oh, well, stop. Yep.